our recently deceased retired Captain Michael J. Ramola, and then we'll do a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin this evening, if anyone would like to speak during the public comment portion, please feel free to sign in on the sheet behind our acting clerk up against the wall on the right. With that, we are going to do one proclamation this evening. And could I ask Jack Krause to come meet me up front? And by way of introduction, Mr. Krause recently lost your wife to pancreatic cancer and has been working with Rabbi Rostein's wife. So we are doing a proclamation declaring the month of November Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month in the Township of Manalapan. Whereas in 2011, an estimated 44,030 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 37,660 will die from the disease. Whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers and is the fourth leading cause of cancer death in the United States. Whereas symptoms of pancreatic cancer, when they present themselves, it is usually too late for an optimistic prognosis, and 74% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of their diagnosis, while 94% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. Whereas of all the racial ethnic groups in the United States, African Americans have the highest incident rate of pancreatic cancer, between 34% and 70% higher than the other groups. Whereas approximately 1,140 deaths will occur in New Jersey in 2011. Whereas there is no cure for pancreatic cancer and there have been no significant improvements in the survival rates in the last 40 years. Whereas the federal government invests significantly less money in pancreatic cancer research than it does in any of the other leading cancer killers, and pancreatic cancer research constitutes only approximately 2% of the National Cancer Institute's federal research funding, a figure far too low given the severity of the disease, its mortality rate, and how little is known about how to arrest it. Whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of Manalapan Township are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments, therefore be it proclaimed that the Manalapan Township Committee designate the month of November 2011 as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month in Manalapan Township. Our next item on the agenda will be an appearance from Future Sanitation to discuss their bid under our recent solid waste and recycling bid that went out. Is anyone from Future Sanitation here this evening? Gentlemen, if you'd like to, I guess, come to the microphone up front there, and our cable committee has said that you just need to stand near it. You don't have to speak directly into it, and we should be fine. Very good. If you'd just like to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Anthony Castellano from Future Sanitation.
Thank you for coming this evening, Anthony. If it's okay, Roger, we'll just ask questions from the governing body.
Sure, unless Mr. Castellano wants to begin with
any type of a presentation or any comments that you would like to make?
Nothing that I have at this moment. I'd wait for the questions, I guess, to respond.
Fair enough.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just for point of order, could you give us your title in terms of what your position is
Sure.
within Future Sanitation?
My position is the CFO of Future Sanitation. The owner, Brian Aloya, and General Counsel regret that they could not make it. They had a previous engagement tonight. I am an employee and CFO of Future Sanitation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And one other point of order that I should have mentioned is that under new business this evening, the Township Committee will be discussing the award of a recycling and waste management contract, and so we needed to take care of the appearance here at the beginning of the agenda. First question I would have for you, does Future Sanitation have any experience in handling a town the size of Manalapan, which is roughly 30 square miles and a population of 38,000 residents, roughly 15,000 households?
We have a long list of experience. We go back to 1999. We have 2 different locations in Passaic, New Jersey, and Farmingdale, New Jersey. We perform service in townships such as Bloomfield. We've performed in Ringwood. We've performed in Hawthorne, Aberdeen. We've completed a contract in East Brunswick. So we have completed large contracts of this size and not bigger.
I'm not going to argue with you, but the size of Bloomfield and the amount of households that would be there in terms of doing both waste, solid waste, and recycling?
I don't have the exact amount of households. I'd be speaking off the cuff if I shoot you a number, but I believe it is larger than 13,000 of Manalapan. I'd have to look it up.
Okay. When you went into these other towns, typically the first 2 to 3 months there is a steep learning curve. Can you describe the complaint process, how you would handle missed houses, missed routes, things of that sort?
Every town is different where the calls are fielded, whether it be through your administration or ours, depending on where the call influx is going to be pushed, what number is going to be published, your building or mine. If it's handled on mine, we log them. We have a time frame that we agree upon mutually that we can go back and get the missed stops. We have floating vehicles. We also have supervisors in the town to assess any problems. If the missed stop needs to be immediately picked up, we do have smaller trucks that can be deployed. It's really a learning curve in the first couple of months. After that, we've experienced smooth sailing. We have a long track record with many towns. We just recently were extended a contract that was up for rebid. They extended us out further even after going out to bid. So the rough spot in the beginning, it's natural. It's, you know, we've in the past got over the hurdle quickly and there was smooth sailing. We have glowing recommendations from a lot of towns. I think we've supplied one to you just recently.
In terms of
specific questions on the missed stops, though, we handle on a case-by-case basis, but we do have, like I said, roving supervisors that are in your town, and we have extra trucks in the beginning of the contract to make sure it goes smoother. That way we can try and eliminate any rough spots or missed stops.
So if a route or a particular household is missed, what would be the time frame to remedy that? Best and worst case?
Best case, the man is still on the street. He hits the reverse and goes back because we have the ability for walkie-talkie. So if the resident is quick enough, we will stop and obviously go back for, you know, right down the street or make a loop. Worst case is 24 hours. Since we are in your town every day, or would be in your town every day, you'd have a next truck the next day available. So the worst case would be the 24 hours.
What would you commit to in terms of a time period where there would be no missed routes or you know, large systemic failures where you're missing a whole street, you know, something to that effect where, you know, just as part of that learning curve, if it's taking you, you know, a month, 2 months, what would be the time period before we wouldn't have to worry about any type of a serious performance issue?
Well, we'd like to say that you wouldn't have to worry from the beginning. We don't foresee any problems or large systemic problems that we would be missing streets. To commit to a time frame, you know, something could always pop up at any point, so it's hard to commit to an actual frame, but we wouldn't see any foreseeable problems where there would be large volume. We're pretty confident in our performance and our core people in our company.
You said at the beginning there will be slightly more trucks. Could you just give us a commitment to how many trucks and their sizes in terms of the packer capacity?
A commitment, again, would have to be I'd like to, to be put on the spot, I wouldn't want to put something on the record of exactly what we're going to commit to until we looked further into what you feel you would need. We do plan on using between 5 and 6 trucks with a roving truck, but it's going to be based on the first couple of days and the routes, the time, the traffic patterns. There's going to be a lot that goes into the first week or two that you're going to see, but the estimated trucks right now are 6. Whether it needs to go up or down, it will be adjusted accordingly.
And these would be trucks where you would assign 2 men to a truck?
2 or 3. There could be two backmen and a driver. There can be just 1 driver, 1 backman. Again, in the beginning, we'd like to overload some of the labor to eliminate any problems, whether it's extra backman or extra trucks.
And would you be assigning the same drivers to the designated routes that you would give?
Yes, each driver would be designated a truck and a route.
And with respect to the equipment list that you gave us, there were, in our bid spec, we had spec'd out a 2007 or better emission standard. When we were looking through your equipment list, there weren't too many trucks that were of that model year. Can you just describe your, how you would plan to have the required equipment here?
Depending on, obviously, the award, we have the ability, if needed, to purchase, finance, lease trucks in the immediate future. We also do have a large fleet that we can move around to accommodate the year, make, or model that we're looking for. And with the admissions, we are able to retrofit with the BART system anything prior to the 2007 to meet that spec. So if a truck was prior, I believe if the truck was older than 2007, we can retrofit it to meet those standards, the emission standards, even though the year might be past the 07.
Now, one of the other items that we noticed in your equipment list was that you had specified whether it was in your north lot or south lot.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to where the equipment for Manalapan will be stationed?
It will be stationed out of Farmingdale.
And is there currently capacity in your Farmingdale lot to handle an extra 5 or 6 or 7?
I believe you were there also, and I think that I can speak for all of us. There was sufficient room to add trucks to that lot.
Okay. With respect to the current system that's in place, our residents will typically call our Department of Public Works when there's an issue with garbage collection or recycling collection. If we were to stay on that plan, I guess we would need to coordinate how other complaints such as too much trash or recyclable items or something as simple as a non-refuse item like grass clippings. Who will be monitoring that? What would your system be for dealing with that?
We'd like to work closely with your DPW and code enforcers to establish, an open line of communication and a process you'd like us to follow, whether it be a sticker program or the visual inspection from the driver or backman on the route to report problems in. We can have a direct line of communication with the drivers, if be it, or a supervisor. It really will be fit to your liking.
How much notice will someone need to have our containers switched out, the large dumpster containers that are at our public works yard?
Anywhere, again, it all depends on the time it's called in. If it's early in the morning, best case, you have it same day. Worst case, we'd go with the 24 hours again.
And if it's later in the afternoon, would worst case still be 24 hours?
24 hours, right. So if it's a 4 o'clock call-in, you'd have it done by 4 o'clock next day.
Okay. And just to reiterate what had, on that dumpster issue, when a driver brings an empty dumpster, it will be a round trip type of a service with that dumpster, or would he be just coming to collect that dumpster, emptying it, and leaving our public works yard without a dumpster for a specified amount of time?
We will make sure that the empty dumpster is brought prior and the full dumpster is taken away, which would never leave you a spot for a open dumpster. There would never be a lack of dumpster. There will always be one there. The trip won't be run and leaving you bare.
Okay.
We can make sure that there's a point where it'll always be issued an empty dumpster.
A frequent complaint that we get is with damage to a resident's garbage can. How would you propose that would be handled?
They're handled on a case-by-case basis, depending on what type of damage. If it's a constant complaint, if it's a witness, it's, again, a case-by-case basis. I mean, we've been known to replace cans. We have in the past. Not saying that we're going to do that for anyone that calls in with a broken wheel, but we really have to, assess the situation. We send out a supervisor. We speak with the resident directly, if permitted by you, and we really lean on each other to make a educated decision whether we should outfit a new can or, explain to the resident it wasn't to our doing, but it really is on a case-by-case basis.
Have you set aside any specific type of a budget for that item?
Our financials do have packed in a can loss or can repair budget. We do understand that it does happen. It is part of the business. We do have some, it's built into us. We have an accrued expense, basically what we dip into when we need to.
Would you be able to share that number with us?
I would not like to disclose any of the real financials on record of what the budget would be.
If trash is dropped by either a strong wind or by operator mistake, will the technician there be equipped with a broom and a pail or other types of tools to be able to clean that up?
All the trucks will have a pan and a broom to clean up any of their spills that they've done, whether they knock the can over, drop something out, like you said. If it's a strong wind as they're picking it up, they do have the tools to clean up their mess.
And if there's a liquid, something such as paint that gets dropped or that comes out of the packer, if a packer plug is blown, what would be your plan there to clean that spill?
We have spill kits issued to each truck. They have a little contain unit that'll stop the area. The drivers have strict instructions to stop as soon as they're aware of the paint spill. They stay where they're at. We come to them or we send the crew in. And again, depending on how long and what kind of mess it is, we either clean it ourselves, bring in a street sweeper, we handle it again. I keep referring to the case-by-case basis, but everything is so, you have to be in the moment to feel where you're going to be able to help the best. But they are outfitted with spill kits.
And in terms of the very tight logistics come December 31st, January 1st, with the transition of the roughly 138 or 140 condo association, homeowner association dumpsters, what would your plan be to do that in the 2 to 3 day time period that we would have over the holidays?
We have the cans on hand that are ready. We'd like to, as soon as possible, with the notice of the award, we'd like to paint sticker, and preload all the roll-offs and begin staging the cans in a designated area in the roll-offs so that the 2 to 3 window becomes only delivering from within the town instead of having trips back and forth to Farmingdale. It'll cut down, we've seen in the past, it'll cut down on the lag time. The roll-offs would be staged already in your town, in an area, a field, a lot, whatever you would be able to, if you'd be so kindly to give us a spot. And then the container delivery trucks will then just be delivering the cans.
And would you be able to commit to having all of those roll-offs in place so that there's no disruption in that service?
Absolutely.
And how many container delivery trucks do you have?
I believe we have one in the north and south. I believe there's 2 delivery trucks.
The current contract reads that from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., that would be our collection hours. Will you be able to operate within those confines? Because we have had other contractors that have started earlier. It becomes a hardship on our residents. Would you be able to commit to not starting till after 6 a.m.?
We will absolutely follow the guidelines of the contract, 6 to 6.
Then with respect to our billing questions, our CFO had asked on how the bills will be processed. The invoices need to include our new state requirements of employee records, the LFN 2010-10.
Again, we would be willing to comply with any requirements needed.
Okay. Thank you. That is my set. Deputy Mayor, do you have anything that you would like to ask?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you coming out tonight to answer some questions. And I do have to be honest, I do have grave concerns about future sanitation and their ability to fulfill this contract. Now, for those in the audience tonight or those watching at home, you may be asking yourselves, well, then why are we considering this vendor? And the short answer is because that's the law. You are the low bidder if we want to maintain the current level of service for garbage. If we want to keep twice a week garbage and once every other week recycling, which I'm in favor of, we have to go with you by law. So I do appreciate that you're here to answer these questions. So I guess my concern is if you've ever had a contract terminated by a municipality, and if so, what were those circumstances?
We have, not to my knowledge, we have never started a contract, performed, and have been terminated. Not to my knowledge, no.
And how long have you been with Future Sanitation?
5 and a half, 6 years, somewhere in there.
Now, if you are to receive this contract, would we be your largest municipality, either in terms of population or land area?
Again, I'd have to compare the two statistics to my other towns. Land area, again, I wouldn't want to answer wrong unless I actually pulled up statistics. Do you have them in front of you? Have you already done the comparison of Bloomfield or any towns that we put in for referral?
Prior to tonight, I was aware of you being in East Brunswick.
Okay.
And I believe in land area we're larger than East Brunswick.
And I believe population, Bloomfield is larger.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? I believe so.
It's possible. We're 38 to 40,000.
I want to say, again, I didn't know what the format of the questioning was. I didn't know what to bring. It was kind of a, if I had direct questions that were going to be pre-given, I would have had specific facts.
So would it be fair to say then that we'd be one of your larger clients?
Larger, yes.
And I guess I sort of want to point that out because my expectation, and I think the township's expectation, is that we would be treated as one of your larger clients. In other words, when complaints come up, and complaints always do, but if in your case there's even more complaints than usual, they're going to come to us, the residents, meaning the township. And I want to make sure that we have a direct line and direct access to someone on a supervisory level who can make decisions and who can solve problems. Because if we as the township have trouble getting our concerns to you, it's going to trickle down and make things worse for residents. So can you essentially guarantee me that we're going to have direct access to someone who can make decisions at Future?
What I can guarantee you is that we're not going to issue a 1-800 number. We're going to give you office numbers and cell phones. So you will have direct access to multi-levels of management level from top to bottom. So yes, I can guarantee you'll have direct access and contact with us.
All right, because I mean, I appreciate that, because one of the recommendations that I'm going to make to the governing body and to the administration is that we set up a dedicated phone line for residents, an email address, so that the township is completely accessible when it comes to complaints. And I just want to make sure that we have the ability to get the job done in terms of dealing with your company once those complaints come to us.
We have seen great strides with the emails and faxes where the complaints, if any, can be compiled on a daily basis and either emailed over in list form or faxed over in list form. Just for the sake of timeliness, we're able to handle whatever system you'd like to put in place. And you will have access to all the key people, key employees.
I also imagine those people would be available leading up to the transition?
Of course.
And I guess my only other concern, which, I mean, Mr. Mayor, you sort of touched on, was that our communities such as Covered Bridge, Nob Hill, Town Point, where they have dumpsters, we certainly want to make sure that there's a smooth transition with replacing those dumpsters so that there's no interruption in service, which, based on what you've stated before, you're claiming that Future is able to do that seamlessly, correct?
Correct. If I may ask, am I allowed to ask questions also, or?
Absolutely.
Has your
Sure.
experience driven you to seeing that there's been a problem with the transition? Did the last hauler have this problem? Is that why it's a concern now?
Well, as you're aware, last year we had a lawsuit levied at us on December 31st, and that created quite a hardship for us. Outside of that, I believe that the 2-year period before that, it was a smooth transition. I guess it was 5 years before that when we had Central Jersey come in, and that was a very smooth transition. But Central Jersey was just a wonderful contractor that when we had complaints, they were resolved very quickly.
We love to take constructive criticism or ideas. If you have something that works smoothly for you and you like to run by us, I mean, we'd like to work together. We'd like to, brainstorm and come up with what you see as a smooth transition. If you have a better way, we can take you up on it. That's all I can promise, that we can work together. I've given you our ideas. If you have different ones, we're completely open to discussing any possibilities.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Holland, any questions this evening?
Seeing that you only have one delivery truck north and south, is there a possibility of you storing extra containers at our DPW, which would cut down on turnaround time, and in an emergency we would have them already?
Absolutely. We'd be willing to issue empty cans and extra cans at your DPW. Given the space, we can work on a quantity and store as many as we like. We have a lot of equipment, and it's sitting and waiting for a town like you to use it. So
Okay,
if you give us the space, we'll bring some cans.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Mrs. Roth?
Thank you. 2 questions, actually. Previous haulers in Manalapan had a tracking device on their trucks, which also aided in dispute resolution as to whether or not garbage, in fact, the truck was on that block and did it stop there. Do you maintain that same type of equipment on your trucks?
We do. We have a GPS tracking system also, and it probably is our best friend with aiding in the misstops or problems.
And does your follow-up to that question, you mentioned earlier about having a supervisor going in I guess a smaller truck on the roads, and so is it part of that individual's role to troubleshoot and monitor?
It would be correct. You'd have a direct line with the supervisor to immediately extinguish any problems.
Okay.
If we can catch anything in the beginning stages, it's a lot easier, and there'll be a direct line of communication with that supervisor, and he will have the ability to make a decision.
Great. And then my final question, you mentioned earlier about the collection hours, 6 a.m., or the discussion, excuse me, was collection hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Given the size of Manalapan and the I know it's about 32 square miles. I don't know the number of miles on roadway. If you start at 6 a.m., do you anticipate that it's going to take you a full 12 hours?
I hope not. We do not anticipate that.
What's your best guesstimate?
Well, we don't like overtime. We'd love to see it in 8 hours, and that's what our goal would be 8 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Maskowitz?
Yes, I just have a couple. Thank you for coming this evening. Like the Deputy Mayor had mentioned, we do have some reservations just from history or that we've heard from other towns. You speak of a direct line direct line to the supervision. Is this going to be through the township, or will our residents have a direct line to somebody right at your I mean, I imagine in the beginning there's going to be a lot of calls, a lot of complaints, because change inevitably brings some problems and some adjustment periods. Are they going to have a direct line to you, because we don't want to have somebody manning phones taking complaints?
Again, we would defer and see what the plan of action is now. Do you have a line? Do they call into your main office first, and then you dedicate the call to the hauler, or do you have them calling the hauler direct now?
Currently, it's going to our Public Works Department.
And they then deploy what they feel is a legitimate complaint to the hauler.
Absolutely.
So the direct line would then be published to the township.
To us?
Correct.
Okay. I'm not really sure that I agree with that. I would rather see a lot of the complaints by the time somebody comes into work and you're on the road at 6 o'clock and you're several neighborhoods away. I'd rather see it solved right then and there. If there was a complaint into you, right to the supervisor, and then they could backtrack, as you said, or back up, or whatever had to be. But I'm sure that'll all be worked out. The contract, that if you get the contract, do you currently have, you said you have enough equipment. Is that are we led to believe also you have enough employees? Are you going to be hiring new employees?
We will be hiring new employees.
Okay. Are we going to be getting seasoned collectors, or, I mean, we're not going to be thrown with all, you know?
With the, with the economy, we have a large stack of resumes to pick through the best, the cream of the crop, the seasoned guys.
Okay.
We are already being approached from most of the people that have performed this town or performing this town, asking for a role. So we're going to have the ability to decide almost the best for your town.
Okay, one last issue I want to touch on. Tipping fees, for those in the audience and watching at home that don't know what that's all about, we've talked about it in the past. Tipping fees are fees that we pay per tonnage when we dump in the county. Naturally, we're lower in the county as far as how much we recycle. And I believe as a committee, and we've all stated on record, that we would like to see that increase. We'd like to see more recycling, because the more we recycle, the lower the tipping fees, and that's more money that we're going to save in the township. Do you have an active program, education program? Will you help us along those lines to educate the residents more as far as an aggressive recycling program? And with that said, when they're collecting, do you currently have a recycling program in place where, you know, what is your recycling program as far as enforcement or, you know?
Well, every town has,
you mentioned a sticker.
every town has a different ordinance program or a different procedure they'd like us to follow. I can give you examples of what we do in certain areas, and again, we can discuss what best fits your town. One program was the sticker program, where we will sticker anything we deem as recycling being thrown away, or vice versa, garbage in the recycling. If you like the sticker program, that is a possibility. There's a call-in program where we don't take it, we call in and report them. There are multiple ways to attack the non-recycling of a township. It's really you have to steer the ship, and we're going to follow.
Okay.
It's just whatever fits best for your township, or whatever your residents like the most.
And you have the personnel that you would come out and be willing to come out and help us set up a program or modify a program, or
Absolutely.
with the
We have
residents?
No problem lending
We had,
a
like,
hand or giving our input.
town hall
our
meetings?
expertise. Absolutely. We're open to discussions and giving our knowledge.
Okay, that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moskowitz. Roger, do you have anything that you would like to add?
No, I think you've covered pretty much the gamut of the proposed part.
Okay.
We've looked over the bids and they're qualified in terms of their bidding document.
Thank you very much for coming. I think our process is that we'll be taking this up under new business, which is towards the end of the agenda. Thank you for coming this evening and answering our questions.
I appreciate it. Just so I can have a couple seconds, we are excited about the contract. We do plan to do an excellent job. We are completely outfitted and ready to start this on the due date. We don't see any foreseeable problems that would be on any normal growing pains. We are very confident with this contract. We asked for the award, and we would be willingly acceptable. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll next go to our Township Committee reports, and I will start off with the Mayor's report. I just have 2 items this evening. As many of you know, yesterday was Election Day, and if you have not read the local media, we are being represented by a new legislative team because of redistricting. We will no longer be served by Senator Jen Beck and Assemblyman Declan O'Scanlan and Assemblywoman Caroline Casagrande. The winners from last night and our Senator-elect will be Sam Thompson. Our Assemblyman-elect will be Ron Dancer and Rob Clifton. At the county level, we will continue to have Rosemary Peters as our surrogate, Lillian Burry as our freeholder, and a new freeholder on the board will be Gary Rich. And locally, Mr. Holland will be returning, as will Susan Cohen will be joining the Township Committee. I'd just like to congratulate all of the committee or the elected officials-elect who will be going to serve the public come January. The other item I had is kind of in the same vein as our recent hearing that we had, the recent appearance here with regard to solid waste and recycling. As was kind of noted during one of the questions, Manalapan does have one of the lowest recycling rates in the county. And besides recycling being good for the environment, it is also an item that is extremely expensive if you're not doing it. For Manalapan to just increase from one of the lowest rates to being an average rate of recycling, we could stand to save roughly $250,000 in what Mr. Maskowitz explained is the tipping fees, the fees to dispose of that tonnage, and it also would reduce the solid waste tax that gets levied on us at the county level, at the state level, I guess that's through. So we are introducing a pilot program that will be impacting roughly 500 homes over the next 2 months. Basically, we're just going to ask our residents once again to make sure that they recycle if they're not familiar with the recycling rules and regulations. It is on our website, mtnj.org. So please recycle. And with that, I will end my mayor's report, and we can go to Township Committee reports. Mr. Maskowitz, would you like to lead us off?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to congratulate Don Holland on his return and victory, and also Susan Cohn for returning back to the committee. At the same time, I would like to thank Michelle Roth for the years of service that she's given to Manalapan. And on the Community Services Committee end, Elisa Peterson presented a report for the final, she does the garden that's in front of the rec center, and she wrote a little email here. We winterized the garden yesterday and dug up all of the sweet potatoes. We didn't get as many potatoes as last year, and many of them were rotten because of all of the rain that we've had this year. However, we did get about 20 pounds of sweet potatoes to give to the Samaritan Center. Everything she grows in that garden goes to the Samaritan Center. So we'd like to thank Elisa for her, Alyssa for her service. As on the recreation front, the Manalapan Sports Council met earlier this month to discuss the new sports-related concussion legislation recently passed in the state of New Jersey. The sports organizations are working with the Parks Recreation Department and the Manalapan Englishtown Board of Education to make sure that all are in compliance with the standards set. And I believe that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Maskowitz. Mrs. Roth?
Thank you. As I had mentioned at a previous meeting with regard to the Monmouth County Chamber of Commerce, and a meeting that had taken place both with representatives of the Chamber, local business owners here in Manalapan, and then they had a presentation before our Economic Development Committee. The administrator and I have received emails from the gentleman who was organizing and trying to bring together both the township and the EDC with the Chamber to enhance and improve the business climate in Manalapan. The Chamber offers a lot of organizational skills that can be implemented from town to town, and they feel that this would be a boon to our local business owners. There's a new program coming out that's called Grow Monmouth, and they have an exciting agenda, but they need the township support in getting local business owners involved. So as there may be some business owners here in the audience as well as watching on cable TV, we encourage you to contact Town Hall if you have an interest in participating in this sort of a program. They are planning 10 of these events throughout the county. They are seeing this as a huge opportunity, Manalapan, because this particular group is being extremely proactive, is looking at being the first one to kick off. And they feel that this will help the merchants grow during tough economic times and provide the resources of the chamber, the state, the county, and of course the township. They see this also has a potential to help residents with job placement, and they're in the planning stages. They need a date from the governing body as to when this room would be available. I know that they had initially thrown out a Thursday, but as we have both our planning board alternating with our Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting on Thursdays, that might not be the optimal day, but I would like to see this added onto new business, Regina, if you don't mind, for a discussion of the governing body, because they'd like to get something on the calendars for January to kick this off before and not wait until reorganization and then get a date and possibly not be into February and lose some of their momentum. There are dates during the week that this room is not utilized, so perhaps we could select one of those. And I'd also like to extend my congratulations to both Susan and Don, and wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holland, would you like to go next?
Yes, good evening. Thank everybody for coming. Our DPW completed its first cycle of leaf, picking up leaves, and that's the extent of my committee report. But I'd like to take this opportunity to remind people Friday is Veterans Day. I think it's pathetic in this country that they get one day a year and people still forget about it. There's millions of men that have died and millions of men that are crippled, and I think that somehow we should show them that we respect and appreciate what they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start off tonight by congratulating Committeeman Don Holland on his re-election, congratulating Susan Cohen on her election to the Township Committee. I'd like to thank Mrs. Roth for her years of service on the committee, and of course I'd like to thank the voters. We've had a very successful 2 years, and it's great to know that we're going to be able to keep moving in the right direction. So thank you to all those who came out yesterday and voted. The only piece of township business I have is a brief update on our Saturday Night Out program, which is for young adults with developmental disabilities. We had a very successful evening out this past Saturday. I'd like to thank Elite Gym over in Yorktown Center, who donated a program for the participants. It's great to be working with local businesses. Another local business we worked with for the event is Hardigan's Grill in Englishtown, who provided a meal, and it really was a very successful evening. So we talk about business. It's great to work with the local businesses in a program that really does mean a lot to the township. So anyone who, if you know anyone who may be interested in Saturday Night Out, please go to our website, mtnj.org, and go to our page for Parks and Recreation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. With that, we'll be concluding our Township Committee reports, and we will go to public comment. Just a brief disclaimer here. The Township of Manalapan Television Network will be videotaping this meeting of the Township Committee for rebroadcast on MTTN Channel 77 on Cablevision and Channel 42 on Verizon Fios. By attending this evening, attendees acknowledge this recording and agree to allow their image to be broadcast on MTTN Channel 77 and Verizon Fios Channel 42. We ask our speakers to limit their comments to 5 minutes, and as a courtesy, the Township Committee will not interrupt you. We will answer any of your questions at the end of public comment. Our first speaker is Jan Zachary on behalf of Englishtown Manalapan First Aid, making his grand entrance.
Jan Zachary, Englishtown Manalapan First Aid, trustee, co-chair, ambulance. I just wanted to give you an update that we had put in a bid spec for an ambulance through the MCIA funding, and we are going to have to reject that because at this time, one ambulance will not do. We have lost 2 ambulances, one a motor, one in a crash, and the other 3 have like over 100,000 miles on 2 of them, 100,000 on one, and we have a minor crisis occurring slowly with our ambulances. We've discussed the problem with the Department of Public Works, who are doing our maintenance, and we feel that we may have to use that money to buy maybe more compact ambulances and to get like 2 ambulances as soon as we can. So instead of buying larger ambulances, to get medium-sized, called basically express ambulances for a discount price, and hopefully use the MCIA money and a little bit more money, maybe another $30,000 to buy 2 ambulances as soon as we can. and we'd like to talk to you about that as soon as you can.
Mr. Zachary, I'm sure we can have a meeting set up here very soon, Business Administrator? And is there any flexibility in the MCIA funds, or are they kind of maxed out at this point?
They are all accounted for,
Yeah.
so we would have to figure out for the additional funding. We'd still have to bid on the 2 smaller ambulances, so we're not quite sure what the numbers will come in for, but we'd have to look.
Yes, we've been having meetings with different manufacturers, and actually we're having another meeting on Thursday, not this Thursday, next Thursday, to discuss purchasing 2 and what kind of discounts we could get on what type of ambulances and that kind of stuff. So we're working on it.
We will work on it, Mr. Zachary. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Tom Madden?
Hello, my name is Tom Madden. I live at 8 Dickinson Lane in Monmouth Heights. I'm here, as many in the audience, to ask you to stop consideration of the proposed change to the master plan allowing car dealerships in the OP3 zone. Master plan, to my understanding, currently specifically exclude dealerships on Route 9. This was a wise choice by the planners. We see no reason to divert from the master plan simply because the dealership asks. Worse off, you're setting the town up for multiple dealerships on this already horribly congested intersection. This is all multiplied by the fact that you're approving this for all of OP3. Future dealerships will seemingly fly through the planning board pre-approved with small speed bumps of signage. Real estate agents trying to sell our homes who can drive through quiet office complex now will have to try to explain away multiple dealerships that are sure to follow. There are multiple big problems with this. Any one of them should be sufficient to kill the notion of multiple dealerships on Route 9. I'm sure one of you will say, well, this is only the one on the table. It's obvious that if this permit goes, Mr. Cadena or someone else will buy the other JCC building, and all the other OP3 land will be bought and converted. It's obvious why the dealerships would find this attractive. Tons of cars on Route 9, a virtual auto mall of dealerships. However, this is not sufficient reason to ruin the quality of life in Manalapan. This dealership would cause a ripple effect of lowered property values, increased congestion and feeder roads, as residents are forced to find ever more creative means of avoiding travel on Route 9 and its intersections. Major problems with this are traffic. Route 9 is horrendous at the best of times, and on weekend it spikes, also prime time for car buying. Despite what the applicant says, no one resists an office building at this location. We believe deliveries will be problematic, as will waste removal. Safety. Test drives will occur. Mr. Katina states it will not happen. I believe he is sincere, but a salesman will not be inclined or able to dissuade an eager customer from driving where they want. But the issue is not traffic alone, it's also safety. Despite the assurances that test drives will not occur in the area, we don't believe they can be effectively prevented either by dealership policy or policed. And it is potentially only one of several dealerships in this proposed area. On Saturdays, a prime day for both auto shopping, soccer games, and soccer practice, you're putting people in unfamiliar performance vehicles and very young as 5-year-old soccer players within feet of tragedy. For what? Yet more dealerships on Route 9. Environmental. Noise, lighting, trees, or lack thereof will all be issues that others will elaborate on. Aesthetics. I personally have not had any issues with development I've seen on Route 9, with the exception of the once proposed Home Depot. Channel became Grand Union, which became Best Buy. Roy Rogers became Wendy's. Gas stations became modern gas stations. Manalapan Mall became revitalized as the epicenter. All these are smart evolutionary changes. Turning office space into a dealership due to a temporary downturn, throwing the master plan away, which has guided the development of Manalapan for decades, out the window, is simply not the way to go. You serve us to ensure smart growth and protect the quality of life of the residents, not to serve the desire of regional dealerships to have a presence within the constraints of their territories. For these reasons and the reasons the rest will give, we expect that the planning board and yourselves to do the obviously correct thing and drop the proposed modification and prevent dealerships from flocking to Manalapan. One other thing I'd like to address is something I just became aware of, that a letter that is attributed to me and that I had no knowledge of before arriving at this meeting. Those of us involved in fighting this change have strived to be as transparent and non-political as possible and not attacking Mr. Katina. I call upon both sides to keep this process to the matter at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Madden. Before we go on to the next item, just so that the public is aware, this Township Committee follows the process that is set out by municipal land use law, where we did entertain an appearance, which typically the Township Committee will do. But other than that, the process has to be followed by the letter of the law. And the process right now is at the stage where an applicant can make a request of the Planning Board, which is a semi-autonomous body, which the Township Committee does not direct what to do. Mr. Valesi, I believe that the Planning Board is hearing this tomorrow evening?
Yes.
At 8 p.m. here?
Continued hearing.
Right, but the Township Committee really has no way to make any input into the Planning Board until the Planning Board passes a formal resolution to send a change to the Township Committee. If that does occur, and I do not know how the Planning Board will vote on that, but if that does occur, we will have our public hearings. You will have every right to have your comments be heard. We value your opinion, and I can speak for myself, but I believe the rest of the Township Committee is that you know, we will take every piece of evidence and weigh it carefully and try to make the best decision that we can. With that, David Schertz is our next resident.
David Schertz, 26 Greenfield Road, Manalapan. In relation to what you just said, that the township has not had any input on this issue with the OP3, I want to know why the township had retained an attorney to meet with an attorney from Ray Katina in August to address this very issue.
Well, sir, I explained that they came to make an appearance, and before we grant an appearance, we will meet to see what someone is requesting an appearance for. That is standard practice here.
But with an outside attorney?
Well, the applicant is entitled to bring legal counsel with them. Yes, sir.
But the township has retained an attorney.
Well, Mr. McLaughlin has been here for over 2 years. He attends anything that we would undertake.
Then why did the township pay the firm of McLaughlin, Gelson, DePolito, Stalfa, Shakely, and Curtis for the meeting if, in fact, they should be coming before this board?
Well, that's my firm.
I understand it's your firm.
So
But why?
Excuse me, let me answer your question. I attended a meeting
Yeah.
on behalf of the
As
township.
on behalf of the township or as a?
On behalf of the township.
Okay.
And since that time, the applicant has posted an escrow account with the township to pay any professional charges that are incurred by the town in connection with its request. That's how those applications work.
Okay. So it happened. So I'm confused on the timing. The meeting took place in the month of August, but it didn't come before the planning board until the month afterwards, or 2 months afterwards. Is that what happened?
Again, that's up to the applicant. The applicant is entitled to ask for a meeting, get a meeting. The applicant makes its application to the board. So I don't know what the exact timing was or when the applicant went to the board, but that's the applicant's decision, not the township's.
Okay. So the township, I'm trying to understand the process. The township meets privately with the applicant, and then after that, they get to go in a public forum? Is that the way it happens?
Anyone can request a meeting with the township, with administration, with township professionals, I mean, that's a normal course of events. So if they want to ask for a meeting as a courtesy, either to say what they intend to do or to get feedback from township professionals, they're entitled to do that. The process of asking for a zone change is a process that's governed by the municipal land use law, and they were told that if they wanted to apply for a zone change, they'd have to go to the planning board. So they went to the planning board. That's the process.
Okay, but...
And that's where they are now.
I understand that. But they met with you as a representative of the town council before they went to the planning board?
Sure, that's not unusual at all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schertz. Mike Wallace?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Mike Wallace. I live at 31 Greenfield Road. I would like to read an excerpt of a letter that was issued today to the Office of the Municipal Clerk in Manalapan Township. In conformance with NJSA 4055D63, notice and protest, please consider this letter the formal notice and protest by the residents of Pride's Walk in regards to the possible rezoning of the property at 200 Route 9 North in Manalapan, New Jersey. The proposed rezoning of the OP3 zone will further impact the Manalapan community, already recognized traffic congestion, which is well documented in the Master Plan Reexamination Report, Township of Manalapan, Monmouth County, New Jersey, dated July 16, 2009. In this document, the need to update the town circulation plan is highlighted. However, it was unfunded and was not further enacted upon. Any potential rezoning, which would further affect traffic without the township having done their due diligence, would be irresponsible and unfounded. In addition, we vehemently disagree with the manner in which the Township of Manalapan has notified the property owners adjacent to the potential rezoning area. In accordance with NJSA 4055D62(1), notice of hearing and an amendment to a zoning ordinance, all property owners within 200 feet of the boundary of the proposed rezoning must be notified. The Township only notified those property owners within 200 feet of the office building that resides at the mailing address. However, the potential rezoning would be for the property in general, not just the building, meaning that the 200-foot criteria should have been applied to the property line and not the building line. We requested the township rectify this error immediately. In addition, within the same ordinance, it states that we should be notified 10 days in advance. The residents that did receive these notices received them 2 days in advance, and the letters weren't dated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Can we reach out to the planning board secretary and check into that? I know that some of that, all of that noticing occurs at the planning board level. As nothing is before our governing body, our clerk was not responsible for the notice on that. We can hopefully get some answer for you on that and make sure that the planning board does not do that in the future. Gary Siegel?
Thank you. Gary Siegel, 18 Greenfield Road. While I understand what everybody has discussed tonight in regards to the dealership possibly coming over to Route 9 and Taylor's Mills, I just have to tell you, just as a parent, and I could speak for a lot of people in this room that have children, this is something that should not even be thought of to even happen. For the fact is that with a dealership going into that area, test drives could potentially go into our neighborhood where we all have small children. I have a 6-year-old that's learning how to ride a bicycle, learning how to cross the street. I also have neighbors that also have small children. Think about our responsibility as parents for the welfare and safe being of our children. I understand it's all about the planning board where it starts, but we really need to consider our children and the safety. So please, just take that into consideration when this comes up to you, because this really should not happen. This is not a good idea. This cannot happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May it please the committee. My name is Glenn Cohen, and I'm a resident of Nob Hill. Last month, I served as campaign manager for 3 candidates for the Nob Hill Board of Trustees. As part of our campaign, we placed campaign lawn signs on private property with the property owner's permission on various locations on Woodward Road, Main Street, and Route 33. These were professionally produced with the address in small type, within size limitations, and I made very sure to ensure that they conformed with regulations. I then received an email from Ms. DeFalco, the code enforcement officer, stating that I had to remove the signs immediately. She stated that these were not election signs for a government election, so they were not permitted under Manalapan regulations, and also that they were not special event signs of, to use her words, a bona fide business. This is with regard to Manalapan Code Section 95-8.7 D3Q for political signs and D3J for event signs. So my contention first is that the signs actually did comport with all of the ordinances involved. The plain language of these ordinances does not require that an election be a governmental election. And secondly, Nob Hill is clearly a bona fide business. It's a nonprofit corporation with 860 members, which provides nearly $5 million a year in real estate taxes. So in my judgment, it's clearly a bona fide business. But secondly, with regard to the election signs, Ms. DeFalco left a message for me. I didn't speak with her personally, but she left a message on my voicemail, which stated in pertinent part, I'll quote her now, "Oh, geez, you know, gosh, we'd have so many signs around town if we allowed that." And now my view is that this position and the ordinances themselves run afoul of the free speech guarantees of the First Amendment. To me, it's a basic issue. Government is certainly permitted to make reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on speech, such as limiting the number of signs, their size, their characteristics, whether they're lit up or not. That's clearly a governmental responsibility and right. But the reasonable speech content of the signs cannot be restricted. There are already quantity and size restrictions on signs in place in Manalapan. Political signs and event signs are already allowed. So the content of the signs is being restricted because even though the permitted signs can say, for example, and appropriately, Cohen and Holland for Township Committee, or Family Fun Event this Saturday, just two of the signs I've seen in the last week, under the regulations, the exact same sign cannot say Zach Kotansky for Nob Hill trustee, or pro-life or pro-choice, or say no to war in the Persian Gulf, for that matter. Those are restricted signs under the current regulations. This was brought up with a unanimous U.S. Supreme Court decision. It's Ledoux versus Giglio, 512 U.S. 43 from 1994. And in a similar situation, it was held that the prohibition of lawn signs was unconstitutional, and further restrictions on the content of lawn signs are themselves presumptively impermissible. So this is the background behind this. I have sent a letter to the administrator and to the township attorney with regard to this issue. And so my question is, how can this be addressed so that the residents of this township and Nob Hill residents can exercise their free speech rights throughout the year as they see fit and appropriately?
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. We'll have our township attorney look into that and have an answer. Administrator, can we have an answer for him in the next week or two as to what action
I can respond, Mayor, at the end of public comment. Be happy to.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cohen. We'll have an answer for you tonight.
Thank you.
George Hardigan? Very good. Lori Schertz?
My name's Laura Schertz. I live at 26 Greenfield Road. I'm also here to protest the building of the car dealership. I live in the area. We've all mobilized. I think it's a terrible thing to do to us. Again, there's little kids. I'm here professionally to talk as an audiologist. The noise would be absolutely through the roof. They were talking about 16 bays. The average decibel would be something like 100 decibels from each bay. And it's a logarithmic scale. So every 10 decibels doubles the amount of sound. The people that would be working, they would be wearing ear protection and they're giving breaks. We're not. We live there. I am also buying a sound level meter so I can manage this myself. However, something different. I also noticed that you're talking about noise from people mowing the grass and stuff. And there is a code that has to be stood by. And I have a copy of it, the model noise ordinance. And if you'd like, I can leave it with you. It would work for both cases.
If you
Okay?
could leave it with the clerk. Thank you, Ms. Schertz.
Who would like it?
The clerk, the acting clerk. Suzanne McManus.
Hi,
Good
good
evening.
evening. I'm Suzanne McManus. I live at 7 Greenfield Road. There was a study done by the Boston Public Health Commission that said that auto shops pose potential health risks to workers and nearby residents. These risks include inhalation of solvents, airborne matter from bodywork and brakes, and water and soil contamination from improper storage or disposal of hazardous wastes. With that being said, my husband and I, we live in one of the 5 houses that back up to the Justin Corporate Center. And we, this is a very big concern for us, for our family. We've lived there for 18 years, and we've raised our family there. We bought the house that backed up to an office building, not a car dealership. And the office building has been a very good backyard neighbor to us. Our big concern is our son. He's 18 years old, and he's been hospitalized 40 times for respiratory issues. He does not have asthma. He has a cystic fibrosis type of illness. This year alone, in 2011, he has spent 7 weeks in the hospital, and he has spent another 14 weeks at home being administered IV antibiotics by me through a permanent port in his chest. Now, I know that, you know, he has a bedroom window that overlooks the Justin Corporate Center. And at this point, you know, we have tried so hard to keep him healthy and keep him alive. And we've done a very good job over the past 18 years. But my big concern is once a service center is now in our backyard, what becomes of my son's health? The reason why I am saying this evening is because we did receive a letter from you saying that we can talk about our concerns about the Justin Corporate Center, and it was signed by you, Mayor Lucas.
Yes, I'm aware of that letter, Ms. McManus. I'm not disputing that.
Okay, all right, but I just wanted to just let you know my concern
Well, thank you.
concerning the office building. Thank you.
David Finkelstein. I guess Mr. Finkelstein isn't here. Marpal Disposal. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
If you could just state your name and your title.
Sure. My name is Charles Pantaleo, and I'm the general manager for Marpal Disposal. The purpose of my being here tonight is obvious. I want to talk about the trash bid a little bit. I'll try to make it kind of brief. Clearly, a comment that was made about future being low on one of the options is true. They clearly are. In the New Jersey bid specs, it states that the town has the ability to award an option, the lowest bidder in that option. So the option I'm here to talk a little bit about tonight is the automated card option. With that being said, I want to touch base on a couple of concerns that you guys have brought up. Marpal Disposal has serviced you guys before. I can tell you, Kenny Nevada, the ops manager who oversaw your contract, is here tonight. The supervisor who used to cover the town, he still works for us. Trucks, all going to be new, 2012 max. Go down, delivery trucks. Because we have 5 companies in the area, we can have 5 trucks here, 5 different delivery trucks that, you know, for covered bridge and all, we would deliver the containers on site and distribute them seamlessly. Oh, I can go on and on about what Marpal does, but you guys know that. What I want to talk about is a card option. I heard people talk about disposal. I heard people talk about recycling. I personally have 20 years experience in the industry. I personally implemented 2 townships of automation. What I did is, and I have references from the town that unfortunately we no longer do, but they have attested to a 20% decrease in disposal, and a correlating 20% increase in recycling. When you look at the percentage and how that would affect with you guys, that's approximately $238,000 a year. That'll bridge the gap of the difference between the cart program and just doing it the old way. It's like going to the Home Depot to buy windows. You can buy the $99 window, and that saves you money in the beginning, or you can buy the argon-filled, double-walled, wrapped ones. That's going to save you the money. That's what the cart program is. I really don't have enough time to tell you a lot about it, but what I'd like to do is open up to any questions you have.
Mr. Pantaleo, is that pronouncing it
Yes,
correctly? I'd
right.
like to thank you for the letter that was sent on behalf of Marpel. It was very informative. I think we will be discussing under new business the toter option, and I would like to say, just as a resident, that when Marpel was servicing Manalapan, you know, we were very happy with Marpel service. I was.
Great. I appreciate that. I'll be available tonight for any questions
Any other
or
questions
anything.
from the governing body? Thank you, sir.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Republic Services?
That's us.
Okay. Mr. Dan Mileto?
Hi, my name is Danny Melito. I
Good
live
evening.
on Jamestown Road in Manalapan. Hi. I have an issue on a much smaller scale, so I'll try to be brief. First, I'd like to thank everyone for their time. And Mr. Holland, I agree with you on Veterans Day. Our issue is, I see a lot going on in Manalapan. I see a lot of improvement. I think that's great. We see roads being paved. I even saw some Belgian block curbs being put in a section of Yorktown. Our issue is Jamestown Road is right off Gordon's Corner. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of trucks coming through doing the construction. And I don't know if this information is public or not, but we were just curious when our road will be repaved, when we may see some improvement in our area. I think the town's doing a great job making everything look better, making Manalapan better. And I know this is a smaller issue, but it's just, you know, I've lived here for about 12 years, and I'll say during that time, I can't remember when there wasn't work being done near my house, and I haven't seen any personal improvements. So I would just like the committee to consider that and maybe direct me to where I can find out where I might see some improvements on my road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melito, and sorry that you had to sit through our meeting tonight. You know, in the future, if a resident has a question that's specific, please feel free to call administration, to email any of us. Our email addresses and contact info is on our township website. But just to answer your question quickly, Mr. Valesi, I believe we've phased the Yorktown resurfacing project over about four phases, or roughly 4 years, that we should complete everything. Phase 1 was finished this year. It was a little bit behind, and I believe Jamestown Road was in phase 3, so that should be 2013 that we would be resurfacing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Capilupo? Mrs. Capilupo? Okay.
Good evening. I'm Carolyn Capilupo from 1 Jamestown. Congratulations to everybody on their reelection. My concern was, and Mr. Mileto was my neighbor, when we did see all the trucks going through our blocks and all the resurfacing of the road and the Belgian blocks, I did call the Department of Public Works, and I had several questions for them, and I was put on hold continuously, and then I was told by the woman that answered the phone, who was very polite, please come to the meeting on the evening of the 9th of November, and any questions that you have could be answered then. Mr. Mileto did answer or ask some of the questions, but my one concern is, being that we do live on Jamestown, which is an extremely transient block, we have people that are coming through the block, speeding, really driving recklessly on many different occasions. My husband is a captain up in Union County, and he has had to stop several drivers on numerous occasions because we have 4 small children. Mr. Mileto has 2. The whole block has several children. It's a turned-over block that we do now have a lot of young children there. Our concern is people speeding through there, coming through to miss the light on Gordon's Corner and Pease, and to cut through there to get to the other side, so they're missing the lights. People coming through, I called the police department. They told me that they were putting a checker there to monitor the traffic. We also have a deaf child that lives on the block, and obviously he can't hear the cars speeding through. So we're all always outside with our children, and we were proposing a question to all of you. What would your suggestion be for the safety of our children, you know, to prevent this type of activity?
Sure. Our police commissioner, Mr. Maskowitz, could you check in with the police department and see if there's what the current enforcement program is over there, and if there's a plan, and we can get back to you. Mr. Maskowitz can get back.
I mean, I don't know if they could put a speed bump there, or I know that they're saying that that's kind of, you know, could be hazardous for different reasons. I mean, if they're coming down from from Pease, turning into Jamestown, and they're supposed to be staying on the right-hand side of the road, they proceed on the left. If they're coming up from Englishtown up and they make the turn onto Jamestown, they're always on the opposite side, because the way they come, they make these wide turns, and, you know, sometimes we block our driveway with our truck. My husband puts, you know, some cones out, or Mr. Mileto also does the same thing with his, but, you know, we're just very concerned because of the amount of traffic. When the church, we're by the church and by Ivy League, so everybody's cutting through, and because we're the corner lot, we do get a lot of activity there, and we just wanted to know what would be a suggestion from the board of what could be done for the safety of our children.
What the chief does is, the police department puts out this box with, I don't know if it's
Yes, we did have one there at one point, and then they also put one on Gordon's Corner Road about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Right, and what they do is they monitor the volume and the speed and times, and then they come up with a, hopefully a zero tolerance enforcement program.
Okay.
And that's like a lot of the cut-throughs. We have a lot of cut-throughs in town. And unfortunately, we can't get to them all the time. We do have officers go out and do their best in enforcement, but then when a call comes, then they're called away. But I will pass that on to the chief and make sure they keep on top of it.
And I realize that there's a lot of activity going on tonight. We just want to make sure that the children are safe.
Nope, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Giraldi?
He actually had to leave. He was with me.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Horstman? Kevin Horstman?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Kevin Horstman, 19 Greenfield Road. I'm here tonight to support the statements made by Mr. Madden and Mr. Wallace, and certainly agree with all of the statements made by the residents of the neighborhood surrounding Greenfield Road. I moved to Manalapan in 2000. I, too, have 2 young children and concerned about the rezoning of that office building for a car dealership. Concerned about the noise, concerned about the traffic, for sure, concerned about the safety of all of our children. 11 years ago, I drove down into Manalapan, made the turn into Greenfield Road, into a beautiful neighborhood, a quiet neighborhood, a safe neighborhood. We raised our kids there. If I was to make that same trip, if this dealership was there, I would never purchase the house. Neither would any of you. Please help us save our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Shelley Goldberg?
Good evening. My name is Shelley Goldberg, and I live at 343 Taylor's Mills Road in Manalapan. I had the privilege of addressing the zoning board last week, or the last meeting, on the Ray Katina Audi dealership, the proposal of the dealership. And I have a couple of points that I have to make, and I have to make an impassioned plea to this board, even though I do understand the rules of order. The first thing is, the letter that everybody got from Mr. Sonnenblick, okay, the attorney for Ray Katina, is tremendously outdated. It needs to be looked into, it needs to be revised before you even consider anything that it had to say. Tomorrow night I will give you example after example of how that happened. The other thing is an impassioned plea. I am a resident of Manalapan for 35 years. I watch the magazines and the postings and talk about Manalapan being the most wonderful place to live. And it is, and it has been, and we want it to continue to be. And I guess this is my impassioned plea to you. All right, we have a school in Monmouth Heights. Monmouth Heights goes around in a circle from Taylor's Mills Road out Smallwood Lane onto Route 9. That's going to be the test drive for Ray Katina Audi, right past the school where the children are outside playing in the playground. I wouldn't want my children or my grandchildren playing in that playground during the day. Right. The other thing is, on Taylor's Mills Road has become a major access road. We wait 3 lights on a weekend to make a right or a left when I come out of my house to get onto Route 9. The traffic is horrendous, it's dangerous. Adding a dealership there with more traffic and more congestion is just not a fair thing to do to the people who love where we live. The other thing is, if Mr. Katina's attorneys are here tonight, and I don't know if they are, or a representative from there, Mr. Katina, I own 2 cars from your dealership. When we wanted to buy a Lexus, and you were not on Route 9, we Googled. We knew who Ray Katina was, your reputation preceded you, and we found you. If you're not on Route 9 with your Audi dealership, we will find you. It is the American way to want to build an empire. Please don't build it on the back of the people who love living here. There is lots of empty room on Route 33 in Manalapan. Manalapan will still get the ratables. It may cost you a little bit more to build your shop because it's not a pre-existing building. But please, please, I beseech you, your people will find you. The people who want to buy cars will find you. Don't take away our way of life. We're not going to let you. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Donahue. Cheryl Donahue. Sydney Levison.
Sid Levison, 16C Pine Cluster Circle, Manalapan. I'm here to talk about the garbage contract. I want to make a couple of points, please. First one is about the trucks that carry the dumpsters. We have in Covered Bridge a few very large dumpsters and approximately 30 smaller ones. And the one thing we've had problems with is getting them emptied, not recently, but for example, when there was a transition, it was literally a nightmare. And even when it's not a transition, many of the small dumpsters are on Amberley Drive where people come during the night and throw things into them that aren't from Covered Bridge. And so the pickup requirements are often much more than normal. And I do not see how someone with one truck in the south of here and one truck in the north of here is going to be able to empty those dumpsters on a regular basis while dealing with other townships at the same time. At the very least, I would ask you to insist that as a condition for the contract that he commit to immediately purchasing 2 or 3 additional vehicles that can carry those dumpsters. Secondly, I'm concerned about, well, I'm sure there are enough employees out there that can be hired in this environment. I'm concerned that the learning curve will be much longer for new employees that are not already working for the contractor than they would be for employees that already are familiar with their procedures and their equipment and so forth. And remembering the transition that we had last time around that was a nightmare, I would think that would be a serious consideration in comparing him him with the others. I know there are legal restrictions on what you can do. But I would ask you to seriously consider Marpal's proposal of an evaluated bid. You may need more information on exactly how they're going to save an amount of money that bridges the gap between the two contract proposals. But if your attorney says it's viable, I would ask you to seriously consider determining whether or not Marpal can make enough of a savings so that the true cost to the township is no greater, and that they, with their experience and their record, could be used as the contractor for Manalapan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levison. With that, we will close our public comment session. Any responses from the governing body?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I want to thank all the Greenfield residents in the neighborhoods coming out and letting us hear. That's what we want to hear firsthand. I also want to acknowledge that we did receive the letters from John Walsh, Michael Wallace, Dave Schertz, Seth Ornt, and Nicole Siegel. So when you do send the letters and the correspondence, we do get them. But as the mayor had stated, it's really not in our hands yet. So, and I believe the other things I had mentioned. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? We'll move on to workshop session. Legal.
Excuse me, Mayor, if I might just respond to...
oh, yes.
Could I ask for order, please, in the audience? Thank you. If I could ask Mr. Cohen, answer Mr. Cohen's question. Sure. I did receive a copy of his letter. He wrote to Tara and copied me. He raised some interesting questions about the sign ordinance, provided some interesting analysis. I've gone over that. In fact, I was working on it today. I will have a memo out to Tara and the zoning officer and the governing body by the end of the week, and we can certainly address that by the time of our next meeting.
Very good. Thank you. And under workshop, you have one item, Mr. McLaughlin.
We have a resolution approving the municipal services agreement on the agenda tonight. It's item 12Q, I believe, on the consent agenda. Yes, 12Q. This is an agreement with the Grand at Battleground Community Association. As the committee knows, the law of New Jersey is that the qualified private communities are to receive certain services or reimbursement for certain services, just as other single-family homes receive in the municipality. So the administrator and staff have sat down, met with the folks from the Grand at Battleground, and this agreement will provide that the township will reimburse them for snow removal and street lighting costs, and the township will provide leaf collection and garbage and recycling services. So this agreement will put that into effect as we move on, and will also provide for reimbursement to them for prior years in which they were entitled to receive those reimbursements, and I believe the total amount of the reimbursement is $101,000 for the prior years.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Any other items?
That's all I have for you.
Seeing none, we will go to Mr. Valesi.
Mayor, I was only aware that this was on tonight. I didn't find out until I was on my way here that this solar power purchase agreement was on. I do not have a report yet for the committee. I'll be prepared to report on it at the next meeting. We did receive some PPA responses, or some RFP responses. We received 3. They vary considerably, so it is taking some analysis. So we will issue the report shortly, and I'll be prepared to discuss it at the next meeting.
Thank you, sir. And Clerk, Mr. Pederati, do we have any new items to add under new business?
Yes, we do, Mayor. I would like to also add under new business, we have a raffle application that was not listed, RL 868. It's for the Manalapan Baseball Association. It's for a 50-50 on-premise raffle on November 19th. The second item that I will have is a resolution appointing a 2011-12 Special Recreation and Saturday Night Out program. The third item is to introduce a salary ordinance for officers and employees. And the last item I just wanted to mention under item 14B, under approval of minutes, I had listed January 26th. That's off. It was canceled due to snow.
Those would be some long minutes, yeah.
And that's all I have.
So that was 3 items, Regina?
Yes.
The raffle, the recreation Saturday night out, and the salary ordinance?
Correct.
Okay. And administration, or
Thank you, Mayor. I
Mrs.
have
Lubbock?
several resolutions tonight. The first resolution I have another end of the year, and this is a unexpended 2011 budget appropriation, and this was for an over-the-limit under arrest grant for a new amount totaling $2,425. Jan had mentioned the MCIA money with the ambulances, but the MCIA, Monmouth County Improvement Authority money is in, and we have the purchase of 2 more police cars for this year's budget, and that's by the recommendation of our police department. The next resolution is a closeout and payment. This was a project we did, improvements to Pension Road. We're able to close this project out, which is good because we got our final payment from the state DOT. We had a grant for this project, so we're closing out final closeout change order to MECO for Pension Road. The next resolution we have is to approve and endorse the acquisition of a development easement by the Monmouth County Agricultural Development Board for the preservation of additional acreage of the Sigismundi Farm. The original resolution we did was for 30 acres. When they did the final appraisal, it was approximately 30 acres. The approximate was now 33, so we know that for a fact, so we just wanted to do the resolution so that our records and documents all match each other, so that's for 33 acres. The next resolution I have is for a subordination of a mortgage, and that's Block 412, Lot 14. The next 2 resolutions I have, again, end of the year. One of them stale dated checks from our bail account that the court administrator is recommending, and one is stale dated checks from our general account, which our CFO is recommending. Next 2 resolutions I have are liens, one for Champions Way and one for Jerry Court, and they're both dangerously high grass that our code enforcement officer is recommended and Public Works has taken care of. The next resolution I have is authorizing TNM, that's our township planner, to proceed with am I the wrong one? Personal planning for future funding for our SADC Planning Incentive Grant, which is our PIG program, thanks, for farmland preservation. This was at the request of the county. The next resolution I have is authorizing Excel Environmental Resources. We appointed them earlier in the year as our LSRP, licensed site remediation specialists, and this will be for document review of the affordable housing project along Wood Avenue. The next resolution I have is one we participate in the county community development block grant program. That's a mouthful. CDBG. I know we have a lot of initials, and this is just to sign up for that interlocal service again. All the towns in Monmouth County participate, and it's time for us to sign up again for 3 years: 2012, 13, and 14. And our final one is a resolution for a budget transfer. The state allows us to transfer money into lines into our budget at the end of our budget year, beginning in November. So today's our first meeting in November. We did some transferring into our finance line, and that was because of our new online tax payment program that we didn't anticipate, and also our MSA line we're transferring money into because of certain settlements we've done for our MSA agreements, Municipal Services Act agreements. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you very much, Administrator. Any questions from the governing body regarding the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll take a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Roll call, please.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Maskowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Roth?
Yes, but I'll abstain to precious gems and metals.
And Mr. Lucas?
Yes. The next item under old business is going to be a introduction of a noise ordinance, bringing into conformity the hours of operation for commercial and residential people who would like to operate their lawn mowing equipment. I guess at this point, it would just be an introduction with a hearing date of December 7th.
Yes.
And can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
I will second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Maskowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Lucas?
Yes. The next item under new business is going to be the bill list, which is dated October 13th to November 9th, totaling $9,707,725.54. Any questions from the governing body regarding this bill list? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the bill list?
I'll move that.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Maskowitz. Roll call, please.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Maskowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Lucas?
Yes, and I'll abstain from the open space and farmland preservation items. The next two items can go as a joint resolution. Mr. Green, would you like to lead off on them?
Sure. Can I get a joint motion on items 3 and 4 under new business?
2 and 3, please.
No.
You sure?
Sorry. Maybe we have different
We might have
agendas.
different versions, but sorry, 2 and 3.
2 and 3?
You were looking for a motion on items 2 and 3. My apologies.
Wow.
Yes, anyone on the governing body who would like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. A second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Maskowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Roth?
Yes.
And Mr. Lucas?
I abstain. Thank you. The next item under new business will be authorizing Excel Environmental Resources to proceed with the LSRP services, which is going to specifically be the document review of the affordable housing project, which is commonly known as the Ingerman Group project on Wood Avenue. It is a roughly 80-unit affordable housing development that is proposed there, which has significant environmental issues. I would ask for any questions from the governing body regarding this resolution. Seeing none, Deputy Mayor, would you like to make the motion?
I would definitely like to make that motion. Thank you.
I will second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Maskowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Lucas?
Yes. The next item is going to be the approval of minutes, and there's a few of them. We're going to do the January 26th minutes twice. Any questions regarding the minutes from the governing body?
Yes, Regina, I had sent you a suggested comment on January, I believe it was January, no,
Was it
it was
February
February 23rd, executive session. Were those incorporated?
No, not yet. No.
Okay, then I'd like to recommend that the executive session from February 23rd be held pending a circulation of that comment to the rest of the, I'm assuming that because it was sent back to you later in the day, you didn't have a chance to circulate that comment to the rest of the governing body.
I was
Or
waiting
unless
for you
you
to
did.
bring it up, that's all.
Oh, okay, no, that's fine.
Okay.
So I would recommend that one get tabled. And that was my only comment.
Do we have a second for Mrs. Roth's motion? Seeing none, I will proceed with the approval of minutes. I will make that motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Maskowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Roth?
I'll be abstaining for January 5th and 12th, and February 23rd, as I feel that they are incorrect, and yes on the rest. And February 23rd is the executive session.
Right, okay. And Mr. Lucas?
Yes. The next two items, I believe we can do together, the raffle for Manalapan Baseball and the resolution for the recreation Saturday night out. I will make that motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Maskowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Lucas?
Yes. The last item that I have is going to be the salary ordinance.
I'll read it by the title, please.
Very good.
An ordinance fixing and determining certain salaries and duties of certain officers and employees of the Township of Manalapan in the County of Monmouth and State of New Jersey, and repealing any and all other ordinances inconsistent therewith.
Thank you. With a hearing date of December 7th. Any questions or comments from the governing body? Seeing none, I will...
Oh, and that's ordinance 2000, that will be 2011-09.
I will make that motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Maskowitz. Roll call, please.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Maskowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Lucas?
Yes. Any other items of new business? Seeing none, I will take a
Excuse me.
motion.
There was an item that I brought up during my township committee report that I asked for the governing body to address.
I didn't hear that from Mrs. Prederati. Oh, and we have other new business, which is the big item, which will be our garbage discussion as well. Mrs. Roth, if you'd like to begin, that'd be fine.
Certainly. It was for the governing body to provide back to our administrator a selection of dates early in January so that the Monmouth County Chamber of Commerce has the ability to move forward with their plan for providing resources to our local businesses here, instead of waiting until January to first pick a date that will more than likely fall into February.
Would anyone like to pick a date or dates? Mrs. Roth, do you have dates you'd like to suggest?
I'd like to suggest something early in January, say before the 10th of the month. I don't have a calendar in front of me. Perhaps our clerk or administrator does.
I don't. Not for
Is there
January.
a specific day that they're looking for, or a time?
They were just looking for a date early in January, and we're told Wednesdays and Thursdays were not doable. So rather than having them wait, I think this is a worthwhile endeavor to work in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce.
January 10th is a Tuesday. Our calendar's not set yet, obviously, because we don't, I think that's what Mrs. Roth is trying to explain. Our calendar's not set. We're assuming township committee meetings will be Wednesdays, planning and zoning will be Thursdays, like they've always been.
Typically, there's nothing here Monday evening. Would that be a safe date?
Right, court will end, yeah, court will end in enough time, right. So January 9th is a Monday.
Is everyone okay with that as a tentative? Okay. Next item would be our discussion on the garbage contract. Roger, would you like to lead us off with brilliant wisdom on our garbage contract?
I'm not sure how much brilliant wisdom I can bring to you, Mayor, but I'll sort of set the table. As we discussed earlier, the township went out for bid on a number of different alternatives involving length of contract, involving the amount of service, for solid waste and recycling collection, and then also involving the type of collection and the use of automated equipment and toters. And of course, the committee's received a bid analysis. What was discussed tonight earlier by Future Sanitation was that Future Sanitation was the low bidder on options 1 and 2. Which, for lack of a more sophisticated way to describe it, would be to collect the garbage in the way it's been collected in the past. Option 1 would change the collections to 1 time per week solid waste and 1 time recycling. Option 2 would maintain the 2 times per week solid waste and 1 times every 2 weeks recycling. Marpal earlier tonight appeared also. That was in connection with yet another option that dealt with an automated system and toters, and of course is more cumbersome in terms of transition. And the staff has provided you with information with respect to that. So the issue really before the governing body, I think, is twofold. One is which option does the committee prefer in terms of providing solid waste and recycling collection to the township? And then once you have determined which option you prefer in terms of the methodology and the term, then the question is who is the low qualified bidder? And if the committee determines that, for example, option 2, which maintains the level of service and the type of service, is what is preferred, Future Sanitation is what is known as the low apparent bidder, which means that dollars and cents wise, which is what drives the local public contracts law, they are the low bidder. The questions that were posed tonight dealt with their ability and potential to fulfill the contract in a way that meets the specifications and meets the expectations of the Township Committee and the Township's residents. They were advised to come tonight because of some questions that had been raised with respect to their experience and abilities and the like, and the governing body members questioned them on those issues. So that's something you can take into account. But there are legal standards that apply if you wish to consider doing something other than awarding to the low and parent bidder, and if the committee is inclined to discuss that, we can certainly go into those issues. But I think the two questions.
Mr. McLaughlin, could I just ask the members of the public that are here this evening, if you don't wish to listen to the garbage discussion, you're more than free to leave. If you would like to listen, could you please just keep the noise down? We have a very important 5-year or 2-year multi-million-dollar contract, and we want to make sure that we make a good decision for our residents. So if you could please be courteous. Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry for interrupting.
No problem. And the public should know that the sound carries in this room, so not only for those of us up here, it's very loud when you talk out there, but I think for the folks who might be watching this on TV, it might be a problem as well. But in any event, as I was saying, there's really two questions that the committee has to decide as a matter of policy. And the first is which bidding option do you prefer in terms of the type and amount of service that you wish to pay for come January 1 for sanitation, solid waste, and recycling collection. Then the second is when you choose that option, who is the low apparent bidder, and is the low apparent bidder indeed qualified to receive the contract? So those are the two issues for you.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Would anyone like to lead off with the question of which service in terms of either years or collection cycles we'd like to start discussing?
I'd like to, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay.
Sure.
As many residents hopefully recall, we've done a lot over the last 61 days to prepare for this vote. We've been seeking public comment. We had a town hall style meeting in September detailing the different garbage options. We have information on our website about all the bid specifications that came in. And having gone through all that material and listened to numerous residents on this issue, I'd like to propose that this governing body go with a 2-year option that maintains garbage at the status quo, which is 2 times a week garbage, one time every other week recycling. And I really just can't emphasize enough the feedback that I receive from residents on this issue. You know, garbage is something that affects our daily lives, and this decision will affect our daily lives. And I heard residents who expressed concerns over storing garbage in their garage over the course of a week, especially during hot summer months. I heard concerns about if a pickup is missed because of vacation or just personal error, you're looking at essentially 2 weeks waiting for a pickup. There's questions of garbage piling up so that it may exceed the cans one person owns. And I mean, I share those concerns. So I would really encourage the governing body to listen to the people. I also know that Mrs. Cohen and Mr. Holland campaigned pretty strongly on this issue and advocated for status quo during their campaign. And I consider their significant victory to be a referendum on this issue as well. So I really feel that the public has clearly spoken, and I would encourage the Township Committee to listen. That being said, I know that there are concerns about recycling in Manalapan. I know the mayor mentioned it tonight. I believe Committeeman Maskowitz referenced it as well. It's a known fact. In fact, it's in the PowerPoint on mtnj.org. We have one of the lowest recycling rates in the county, and I agree it's a problem. Environmentally, it's a problem, and it certainly affects our bottom line. The less we recycle, the more money we have to pay to the dump. That being said, I do not think the solution is to pull out the rug from residents starting January 1st, 2012, and suddenly drop to once-a-week garbage, once-a-week recycling. I would rather phase something like that in over time, if that's something we're going to consider, which is why I'm advocating for a 2-year contract. 2-year contract means we're having this discussion again at this time in 2013. So the next 2 years would give us an opportunity to focus on recycling in different ways and perhaps move towards a system in the future that would be a little less jarring, that may address the recycling issue. And in fact, as the mayor indicated, we've already started that with the announcement of a recycling enforcement pilot program, which is going to be starting over the next 2 months, which we will be evaluating in January of 2012. So I don't want anyone to think that we're ignoring the recycling issue, but I do believe strongly that the answer is not to drop to once-a-week garbage in a little over 7 weeks. So I would encourage the committee to move forward with a status quo 2-year contract regarding waste collection. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Anyone else from the governing body?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment very briefly, Mayor. As Ryan had said, alluded to, I've gotten tons and tons of suggestions and concerns regarding the garbage. It's just one of those things, as long as your garbage is picked up and your cans are back where they belong, everybody's happy. But it seems like garbage is the one issue in town where you disrupt it a little bit, and I recognize, Sid, with your concerns, and that's why I'd asked about the new employees also. But once it's disrupted a little bit, the calls just flood in, and I think, as Ryan had mentioned, I'd like to see us get heavier into recycling, but I think it's, at this time, in the best interest of the residents and the quality of their life, that we stay with a status quo of twice pickup a week and then every other week recycling, and hopefully with a stronger participation in our recycling efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the governing body?
Mr. Green stated prior, I spoke publicly that I was in favor of keeping a status quo, and I still feel that way.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Mrs. Roth, would you like to add anything? The one comment I would like to make is just, again, on our historical record when we had Marpel here almost 12 to 7 years ago. We had, I know our residents, from feedback I received, just had a great experience. They, in terms of having very little in the way of problems and having the problem solved in a timely manner. After that, we were fortunate enough to have Central Jersey, who followed much in that vein of providing great service, of solving problems. The very unfortunate thing is that New Jersey state public contract law does not allow us to assess a value for the bid that's given in terms of the service provided. It is very clear that we can only award to the low bid of an option that we have. You know, with that being said, I think tonight my greatest disappointment was that we had asked Future Sanitation to come here, and I guess I was really hoping, with no disrespect to the gentleman that did show up, that we would have a high-profile decision maker that could make commitments to us on some of the important items, like the number of trucks or the other questions that were asked. And Roger, again, I don't think that we can use this as criteria to reject a bid.
I would agree, Mayor. I mean, the local public contracts law is pretty clear that you have to award to the low qualified bidder, and in determining whether the bidder is qualified or not, there are really two major issues, and one is, you know, are they financially capable of handling the job? And what the law says basically is if they can provide you with a bid bond and a consent of surety, as you know, being an agreement by a licensed surety company to provide a performance bond to guarantee their performance, then they are financially capable. And Future has certainly done that. To be the apparent low bidder, you have to meet that threshold qualification. I think the concerns that the committee raised tonight, the questions that you raised, they're all good questions, and they're all valid concerns. But you know, in terms of what I heard tonight, although maybe not solid guarantees that you may have gotten from the president of the company or the chief of operations or whomever. Essentially what I heard was representations that the bidder is ready, willing, and able to fulfill the terms and conditions of the contract, and without some very specific information that would allow you to make a determination that they could not, then they are entitled to be awarded the contract as the low apparent bidder. The information that pertains to their service history with smaller communities is certainly true. I think East Brunswick, Mr. Valesi was kind enough to look that up for us while you were talking. It's about 22 square miles, so it's still significantly smaller than Manalapan, although it does have about 45 or 47,000 residents, as does Bloomfield.
And the big concern there, though, was that was recycling only, I believe. It was both garbage, solid waste, and recycling? No, but East Brunswick was just recycling.
Just recycling. So the experience doesn't necessarily match what the challenge will be, if you will, for Manalapan. But under the local public contracts law, unless Manalapan has a negative provable history with the low apparent bidder, it's almost impossible to find that they're not entitled to the contract. And I know the reaction from elected public officials as well. We're sort of then the guinea pig to find out if this company can handle a 32 square mile town with 40,000 residents. And I guess the answer is yes. When you come right down to it, that is the position that the public contracts law puts you in, because the goal is to get the lowest price, and clearly they have the lowest price. It's going to be a matter of whether they can live up to their promises that they've made tonight, that they've made in their bid proposal to perform under the terms and conditions of the contract, and do that in a way that satisfies you and satisfies your residents. And then a matter of on our side of the equation, to keep close track of the work, especially on the transition, and make sure that they do. And if they don't, to make sure that it's brought back to the governing body to take appropriate action at that time.
Is there any type of performance language that we could, just knowing the track record, or hypothetically, if we know that a company is extremely litigious and likes to sue people, is there anything that we can put in a contract that would specifically outline the performance so that we could hold it accountable and it's not just a nebulous, they haven't performed?
No, I think you have, the contract will embody the specifications and the performance standards that have gone out to bid. So I think in terms of the contract, you have enough specifics and you have enough enforcement mechanisms in your contract and in the state regulations, which are embodied by reference as well. So I think it's a question of when they sign the contract and give us a performance bond, they're going to be obligated to perform in accordance with the terms and conditions of those specifications, and there certainly is a remedy if they don't. So the burden is going to be on them.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Does anyone from the governing body have a suggestion or a motion for any one of the 8 options, or if any, in lieu of not having a firm motion to be made, we can always retire to executive session if that is another option?
I'd be willing to make a motion to award a 2-year contract to Future Sanitation to maintain garbage collection and recycling as status quo. I don't have the option in front of me.
That would be option number 2, Deputy Mayor.
So I would essentially be making a motion for option number 2 to Future Sanitation.
And does anyone want to second that?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Maskowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Lucas?
I hope I'm not going to regret this, but yes. With that, we have no other items of new business, and I will take a motion to go to executive session. We have one item. I don't believe that we would need to come back to public, Administrator, on that one item. So it would just be one item in executive session of
Litigation, I believe.
Yes, it was litigation. With that, I will take that motion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.